And today we're very excited to have with us the two first place winners of the 2025 ZEKE Awards. Started in 2019, the ZEKE Awards has been presented to two photographers each year in the categories of documentary photography and systemic change. With us today is Carlos Folgoso Sueiro from Spain, winner of this year's ZEKE Award for documentary photography, and Jan Bonning, winner of the ZEKE Award for systemic change. And the ZEKE Award is supported by the Foundation for Systemic Change. I should mention that Carlos is from Spain, which I'm sure many people are aware just suffered a massive power outage. And this morning, he wasn't even sure if he was going to be able to be with us, but I'm glad to see he's with us and his internet is working on his phone anyway. So we'll do our best. We'll also be having two exhibitions of this work. The first will be opening on May 10th at the Bridge Gallery in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the second exhibit will be at Photoville in New York, opening June 7th. And the work by Carlos and Jan will also be featured in the upcoming issue of ZEKE magazine, due out in June. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to ZEKE at zekemagazine.com. Next week, on May 7th, we'll have our one in-person program at the Leica Gallery in Boston with Rania Matar. And the final program will conclude on May 13th with a virtual panel titled This America with Ed Kashi, Nina Berman, Richard Sharm, and moderated by Dudley Brooks. And I hope you can join us for some or all of these upcoming programs over the next few weeks. And you can find information about all of our programming at our website at www.socialdocumentary.net. We're so grateful for the sponsors of the SCN Speaker Series, Leica USA and Digital Silver Imaging. And I also want to thank SDN members as well for your support. The moderator for this panel is Maggie Soladay. In addition to being a board member with the Social Documentary Network, Maggie is senior photo editor at the Open Society Foundations in New York. Her work with OSF involves addressing racial, economic, and political justice issues around the world through photography. Maggie is always looking to work with photographers who explore human rights issues and has been working in the photography industry for over 25 years. So now let me turn this over to Maggie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's very exciting to see all of these close faces. I'm going to introduce the photographers, um, starting with the winner of the ZEKE Award for documentary photography, Carlos Folgoso. I'm going to try it again. Sueiro is a photographer from Spain, and he earned his bachelor's degree in sociology. Carlos's photographic work engages closely with social, geopolitical, and environmental issues, especially in his homeland of Galicia, Spain, but also some incredible work in Siberia and in the Mediterranean. Much of the migration crisis in the Mediterranean, the refugee crisis from the Middle East, and also more water-based work. He's also documented the Costa Concordia disaster that was in Italy. Um, his work has been published in several publications, including National Geographic and Vanity Fair. Carlos's interests range from historical and philosophical topics to abstract ideas like the origin of time, gravity, the creation and destiny of the universe, and the deep feelings of human beings. And I think all of those words he chose for his bio are expressed in his winning project Beyond the Lake. Jan Banning is a Dutch photographer based in the Netherlands. Jan was born to parents from the Dutch East Indies, present-day Indonesia, and studied social and economic history. Both his background and academics have strongly influenced his photographic work, whether expressed in his choice of subjects or the historical aspects of his themes. In Jan's photographic work, the socio-political context is generally at the forefront, and he often chooses subjects that are difficult to visualize: state power, the long-term consequences of conflicts, and criminal justice. Um, Oh, yeah. Okay. So sometimes his work is the result of an approach that relies on sociological or anthropological classification. At other times, it focuses more on the individual psychological impact of major social events. Also, very well reflected in his winning project for the ZEKE Award for Systemic Change. Um, Also, too, I found this very interesting in Jan's bio. He occasionally describes himself as an artivist, not satisfied with merely visualizing themes through documentary work, but also striving to bring about change using both his work and his reputation. Jan's work has been published in more than a dozen photo books and many, many media outlets. So on to our presenters.
Thank you.
Glenn, who goes first?
Well, since you introduced Carlos first, why doesn't Carlos go first?
Yes, and also, yeah, I think you mentioned Carlos is using internet through his phone due to the internet and electricity dramas in Spain.
So, hello, here I am. Can you see me?
Yeah, we see you
Yeah,
fine.
perfect. So, thank you so much for this presentation, Maggie. And of course, thank you so much to Glenn and all the social documentary network for choosing my project. I will explain you. So we have like a little bit time. I will explain you my project since my own process to do it. So first of all, I think to understand that project, it's important I tell you a little bit about my background. So I worked for 15 years in like a documentary photographer, but more related to the news. So I work in a news agency in Italy. And during that time, I had a very stressed life. So every day, lots of different assignments, like what the newspapers and the magazines ask is work a lot and work fast. So after that stressful period in my life, I got an illness. I hurt my spine, my back. So in 2020, around June 2020, I really feel bad. I could not move, and I spent around 3 years more or less in the bed. I could not work, almost could not drive, just walk a little bit. So that time uh, was the origin for me to this project Beyond the Lake. If you want, I can share you the PDF of my project in order to you can see the pictures and I can explain you better what is the project about, and you will understand why is the result of this period of suffering. So let's try to. Can everybody see
Hmm.
my PDF, the title Beyond the Lake? Okay. So as I told you, uh, I spent a lot of time in the bed. During that time, that 3 years after 15 years working a lot, uh, I had the time to stop and to think more about what I want to do with photography and also with life. So I spent a lot of time reading because I could stay lying in the bed. I spent a lot of time watching films, and I understood that my photography since that time was so fast. I shoot a lot of things, but I didn't spend the time and to realize good what I was shooting. So I started to think that photography that I will need some kind of therapy in my life to get to feel better with my problem of health. So and I think that photography could be the thing that could help me to go out from that bad time. So I started to go out into the streets and to the streets more to the forest, let's say to the nature, because I live in here in Galicia, we have a lot of nature, and I start to shoot a little bit what I have surrounding me, because as I told you, I could not move. After some months shooting, I understood that all my pictures was speaking about. So I didn't plan a project. I just start shooting, but I realize all my pictures speak about more or less the same thing, which was probably my feelings. So it was, I understand that I was probably photographing my how I feel in that moment. I feel like some kind of sadness, some kind of limitation, some kind of nostalgia. I don't know in English the word for the past time I had working, that I could work a lot, but in that moment I could not. So when once I realized all that pictures was speaking about the same themes, uh, I decided to make a body of work with them. And this body of work I didn't have the title at that moment, after I called Beyond the Lake, but that body of work was about that feelings that I had. So I understood that feelings are common for a lot of people in my region, in Galicia. So I slowly understood that uh, these feelings I had, like sadness, like isolation, limitations, are issues that concerns to everybody once in life. So this project I started in my region, in Galicia, but I think it speaks about human feelings. So as I told before, like the main themes of this project could be loneliness, nostalgia, abandonment, migration, poverty, which are problems of Galicia, unemployment, alcoholism, social rejection, exclusion, religiously mystical beliefs, and dualism, such oppression and domination. So I attempt to try this project since a metaphorical point of view. I didn't want to be descriptive with my images like I was in the 15 years previous. I didn't want anymore this description, but I wanted to make some kind of images that represents me ideas, some kind of metaphorical views about what I was feeling. So for example, this is one of the pictures I used to open the project. It's a wall uh, in in a village which was covered underwater for 30 years. So for me, this wall is not a picture about the drought of this area, or a problem about climate change or something. For me, it's this picture is a representation of the past that will never return. Some kind of feeling that we all have once in life. So for this project, I start to choose some characters that for me are symbols or representations of ideas, of the ideas I explore in the project. So I will introduce you a man who is from my family. It's the cousin of my daddy. His name is Tony. Tony used to come home with nuts, and he says that his girlfriend, Rosemary, present him the nuts. But unfortunately, Rosemary don't exist. Rosemary exists only in his mind. So Tony is him. He is a man who worked from a young age as a wild land firefighter, but he became deep alcoholist, and when he was 50 years, he was fired off from the work. So Tony for me represents the social exclusion because nobody wants to have nothing to do with him. For me, Tony is like a paradigm of the term of the social exclusion. He live in the village with a lot of people, but he is really alone. So it's like abandoned. So for me, the idea of abandonment is something that it comes every time in my project. So I will show you a picture of a house which was built for the forest ranger to safeguard the forest from wildfires. This house was submerged by water because a dam was built. Okay, so for me, this picture is uh, also a representation of the abandonment, of the sadness. Um, it's also ironic that the house that was built for prevent the forest fire was the house was finished under the water. So the house, it's like a like opposite ideas become together, no? So all the time with my pictures, I try to be very focused in what I shoot and try, as I told before, to not be so descriptive. So, for example, this picture is for me representation that I work in different layers of meaning in my project. So many different stories that it seems that have no to do with the others. So many different pictures in my project, but all of them share a central theme or central themes. These horses are called bestas, and they are traditional Galician horses. Their population was reduced to the half in the last 10 years, so they risk really to disappear. So for me, this picture is not just a representation about these horses that we have, they are disappearing, but for me, it's a representation of the abandonment of the land because they disappear because there are no more people who take care of them. In this case, for example, this is a forest fire. Uh, I think about how to shoot a forest fire because we have this problem in Galicia. We have lots of forest fires, but I didn't want a descriptive picture, so I wanted to be metaphorical. So when I photographed a fire, I avoided the idea of capturing firefighters or the forest burning or something like that. Instead, that I asked myself, what do the villagers see when the forest is burning? So probably most of them or everybody look at the sky and see the cloud of smoke. So I think this is a different kind to shoot a forest fire. So I decided to use this metaphorical style to all the project to speak about my land. In this case, uh, he is a very deep and complex. This man has a very deep and complex story behind. Uh, he lives like a hermit, alone, isolated in the mountains. Has no electricity, no refrigerator, no TV. He doesn't have even running water or bathroom. He lives with his goats under stones. That's all. So for me, he represents a dualism, the confrontation between a society that demands more and more from us, but at the same time, he represents the freedom to choose to live out of this society. For me, Nacho is the representation, Nacho is his name, is the representation of freedom. When I work uh, with opposite ideas, I also like to work with not diptychs but confronted ideas. So like I have the idea that in Galicia we have a very beautiful land, a very beautiful nature, but the dualism between nature and environment degradation is still more heavy. If you have a very beautiful landscape, when you have the degradation of this landscape, like in this case, you see it's a dry river, it's still more heavy. So I like to work this kind of with this kind of ideas with dualism in all the project, like hard environment or environment disaster, and at the same time the protection of the landscape or the protection of nature. From another part, maybe a dualism between the nostalgia, the pass of time, like you can see in this road in Naples, and at the same time the serenity of living in the nature, like almost all my characters do, or dualism, like the abundant rainfall. Galicia is one of the most rainy regions in Europe. It's the most rainy in Spain, but one of the most rainy in Europe. But it's also ironic that also we have a lot of rain. We have also big droughts caused by drainage of reservoirs. You can see this village was covered underwater for 30 years. If you can see today the level, where was the level of the water. I don't know, see, you can see my mouse?
Mhm.
No.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So the water level was around this level for 30 years since the 90s. You see back there? So in 2020 it became and this village became to the light. You could walk around here after 30 years. So another central theme of my project is the passage of time. You can see also in this picture 30 years without nobody touch nothing in this village, you know. But I like to photograph without giving a contract a precise reference of time. If you see my pictures, you can say they are shooting today or maybe these years, but you can also think they can be shooting like 20 years ago, because I try to don't make the links to the present. For example, I always try to shoot people when it's dressed like in traditional costumes. This thing links me to the past. So I like the idea of timeless in my project. So the timeless is related with lots of the themes of my project. Timeless is related also with religion, for example. It's also related with the theme of death. It's also related with the theme of hope, the hope we all humans have, like the theme of death we all humans have, like the theme of religion all we humans have. The idea of timeless it's also concerns with, I think, with abandonment, the pace of time, and another time the idea of nostalgia. So to work a lot of themes at once, I try to rely on characters in whom all these um, problems intersect. So maybe one person which have lots of in which became all of different themes. For example, these guys are Adolf and Raoul, and they are a good example of different themes that became together. They live alone in the forest. The neighbors don't want them. The neighbors put fire to their home with them inside. So they try to kill them, the neighbors, because they get the money from the forest. So it's a long history. In any case, they live isolated since 10 years ago. So for me, they represent also the themes of isolation, loneliness, resistance, and the struggle for freedom. So another theme with the resistance, another picture is this. This is the traditional slaughtery we do at home. This is forbidden for by the authorities because health problems. But people in her homes, like my grandfathers, still do it today, also if it's forbidden. So for me, it's some kind of idea of the resistance to this new world that is arriving in Galicia. The resistance of change is also represented by young people, like this guy who is he worked like I don't know, it's in English very difficult. He cut the hairs to the ships, to the ships. So he's 20 years old, but he tried to live connected with nature. It's rarabis. This guy we say rarabis. Strange. It's very strange, no? A young guy who still live connected with nature. So we can also see the themes of abandonment of the land from a metaphorical point of view. So I try to represent what remains after the fire, as I told before, I don't want to shoot the forest fire, but I want to shoot what the people see in the forest fire or what remains later. The pictures that usually the newspapers will not use. So another important theme in Galicia is the belief in myths, legends, and fairy tales. So here we can see, oh, sorry. You can see my, oh, okay. So we can see here a pagan celebration where people dress up as monsters and take to the streets. In Galician tradition, there are many legends about spirits that kidnap you and take you to the forest with them. So I also want to give a little touch of this theme in the project. With beliefs and mysticism, we also have the Christian idea of the bridge to hell, which I represent with. I used to shoot bridge and it seems that it represents a metaphorical path between the idea of between the world of people who is alive and the dead. So Galicia is a land rich in mysticism and folklore. So it is deeply tied to these kinds of legends of spirit and sacred rituals. The intersections of myths and religion shapes the personality of Galicians. So for me, this bridge is a good picture to put at the end of the project. Like it's for me like the bridge that crosses to beyond the lake. So you can go or not. So to conclude, I want to show just the last picture, which is Guillermina. She is, for me, another representation of freedom. Guillermina made the decision to leave her family, which was very rich, and go to live alone in the mountains. She lived also like a hermit. She has several children. She had the children in the mountains without doctors, and he's still today live alone in the mountains. So for me, is a, a good representation of what my characters are. So to conclude, I want to show you very fast some kind of my process. I explain you I spent 3 years in the bed. So during that time, I study a lot and I get inspired by others. So not only for photographers, but also by music, by literature, and so sometimes I really feel I got influenced by them. So this is Tarkovsky's The Mirror film, and this is the opening of my project. So I think I got quite inspired by him. Also because his style is slow, and I became very slow shooting. We have here another Tarkovsky, which is it can be some kind of abstract idea with my project, with my picture, his landscape. Um, Another clear is that I wanted to shoot this sloggery of the pigs, but I didn't know. I made a reportage, but I knew I didn't have the picture I want. But I got inspired by Rembrandt. This is a very famous we call the Buey desollado, this paint. So I got inspired by this picture to shoot this traditional sloggery. And I also got inspired by a lot of photographers like Nana Eitman, which is one German photographer, Russian German I like a lot, Monteleone, and so sometimes I feel I got I I got the images previously in my mind, and then they become they become out from me. Just say that now I feel that the project is living alone by himself, and the project has his own life, and I'm just I still shooting for this project, but I feel like I'm just a servant of the project. So for now, that's all. Here you have my contact. If you want or ask me some questions or something, just you can write me an email or a message.
Well, thank you so much for that. That was
Thank
such
you.
a
I'm
heartfelt.
sorry if I got too much time, but
No problem. No
okay.
problem.
Okay.
We do have time for one question for Carlos before we move on, and then we'll have a longer Q&A at the very end. But if anybody would like to ask a question of Carlos, either unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the question, or if you raise your hand, your digital hand, I'll call on you.
And also, Carlos has requested that that we type the questions just so that he makes sure that he understands
Mm-hmm.
what people are asking. And Glenn, if nobody else has a question, I do have one.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay. Carlos, I wanted to ask, where do you think you would be photographically had you not been bedridden for 3 years? Do you think you would have continued as you were working, or was your mind already moving towards this change of pace?
Uh, Sorry, you are asking me if I thought about not work anymore in photography, or
No.
just changing my style.
Where would you be in your career had you not become bedridden? Would you have continued to be a journalist?
Where I will be right now, you mean? Uh, probably. Probably I will be still working in the news a little bit and focusing in my own projects like this one I showed you uh, a little bit, but not as deep as I did. You understand what I mean? I made the change very fast, like flip. If not, the process will be longer, I think.
But do you think you had a lot of time to think?
Yes.
Uh, did you did you always plan on shifting your style and
No,
approach? No,
no, the
it
style
just
shift by himself. The style shift by himself. I told you at the start that I just start going out and shooting the forest and the rivers, and so I became to shooting in a different way. Just became shooting in a different way, and then I realized that different way makes sense together. So it becomes natural for me.
All right, why don't we move on to our next speaker, then we could come back to more questions afterwards. And if people have questions, you can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand, or you could just unmute yourself. But we'll wait until after Jan has spoken. Okay, Jan, why don't you take it from here?
Okay, yes. Let me first thank Carlos for his very beautiful work and very inspiring work and his interesting presentation. And let me also thank the Social Documentary Network people and everyone involved here. I have rapidly taken up a few photographs here which relate to previous work I made. And I think it's good to start. Let me put this, how do I share my, does this work? Do I share it now? Do you see anything?
No, you're not sharing it yet.
I'm probably sharing this. I hope so. Share.
And then you got to
Oh.
select what it is you want to share.
Yeah, I did that. Open system settings. If it's too complicated, it's not, we forget about it. Yeah, it is too complicated. Okay. I'm sorry. People will have to go to my website to do that.
But I have your website up on my computer, so I can share your images from Rwanda.
Okay, yeah, sure. But I wanted to take it a step back. As Maggie explained in the introduction, my parents were born and raised in what was then the colonial time in Indonesia, which at the time was called the Dutch East Indies. And during the Second World War, they were locked up in camps. Not destruction camps, not like Sobibor or similar camps by the Nazis, but still in camps under very difficult circumstances. And both my father and my grandfather were basically used as slaves to construct railways. And contrary to a lot of people with that past, this was discussed quite openly in my youth. My parents were quite open about it. So you could say that although I myself grew up in, as far as Holland is concerned, where I live, a country at peace, I grew up with these stories of conflict and it has probably raised my curiosity in the long-term consequences of conflicts. So during the years, let's say over the last 25 to 30 years, I've worked on that issue. I started with my father and 23 other former slave laborers who worked on these Japanese railways, both Dutch as well as Indonesian people. I then moved on to comfort women, so women who were forced to forced into sexual slavery for the Japanese army during the Second World War. I delved into psychiatric problems of Vietnamese as a consequence of their several wars against the Americans, against the French before that, against China after that. Agent Orange was another issue. And then I moved on to, well, I guess you couldn't call it as clearly long-term consequences of conflict as the examples that I just gave, but I moved on to the American criminal justice system, and more concrete to the fate of one woman who by now has been locked up for 33 years. And I thoroughly investigated the case. I have the whole archive. I took the evidence to medical experts because she was convicted for supposedly killing her 3-year-old daughter. So I have post-mortem photos and the reports and everything. Anyway, so that was sort of where I stood when in 2023 I was asked to do an assignment in Rwanda. And assignments are very rare for me. Most of my projects are my own projects, self-initiated, but this was one of those rare assignments. And while in Rwanda, photographing trade union members, women who were working in construction, I went to a pub one evening with one of the union members who there told me a story that completely shocked and flabbergasted me, which was that both his parents had been killed during the 1994 genocide, and his mother had been killed by a person she considered a friend, a neighbor, somebody whom they saw just about every day. And my company, this trade union man, had been playing with his kids always, and then suddenly he turned into a killer. So the body of the mother disappeared in a mass grave. Several years later, the perpetrator asked for forgiveness from the family of his victim, and the union man, Jack, said that the whole family had indeed forgiven him. But not only that, when they found the body of the mother in that mass grave, they wanted to hold a ceremonial funeral, a new funeral, rebury her. And they invited people, and one of the people they invited was her killer. So I was utterly shocked. But then Jacques was surprised by my reaction, and he said, but didn't you know that this is just one example of many here in Rwanda? And that really, well, it not only intrigued me, it sort of almost hit me. After all these difficult themes where a lot of people were suffering from trauma so long after these conflicts, now suddenly I was confronted with an example, a situation where people had actually reconciled with and forgiven the people who had deeply harmed them. So then I decided that this is what I wanted to take on. And well, it took preparation. I had to get permission from the authorities in Rwanda, which is, well, let's say it was a bit difficult to handle the authorities there, because it's really a police state. But the fortunate thing is that the Rwandese government is officially also, how shall I say, making propaganda for this reconciliation. And they even set up a few villages which are supposed to serve as proof, as examples. And this is where they try to get all media to. So one thing that was clear to me, and clear to the writer whom I invited to join me, was that we had to avoid these possible propaganda villages and look for ourselves, which of course is not that easy. But then we got into contact with an organization which is not aiming to, let's say, cure these traumas or to establish reconciliation, but is basically aimed at creating kind of mutual trust, you could say, in these communities. So let me take one step back and say a bit more about what happened during the genocide for people to understand this process. As I said, the genocide started in 1994, to be precise, April 6, 1994, when the plane with the Rwandan as well as the Burundian neighboring country, Burundi's president, was shot down. Till today, we don't know exactly who did that, but they came back from peace talks with a revolutionary or a liberation army. And this set about that genocide. Now, what was the point of the genocide? Rwanda was divided into two groups, Hutus and Tutsis. Hutus were about 85% of the population, and Tutsis about 15%. They were presented by the Belgian colonial government before independence, but also by the government at the time in the 1990s, as two ethnic tribes. Which is nonsense. They are social-economic. There's a social-economic difference between the two. Now you could say that the Tutsis originally were the cattle holders, and the Hutus were the people who grew. How do you call that? Agricultural. So not handling cattle, but grains, maize, whatever. And of course, over the centuries, these groups had mixed, and even Hutus could become Tutsi if they managed to get enough cattle. But now in 1994, it was presented as two tribes, and the government stimulated Hutus to kill the Tutsis, saying that otherwise it would be the other way around and the Tutsis would kill the Hutus. So in a period of about 100 days, an estimated 800,000 people were killed. The majority were Tutsi, but there were also quite a number of Hutus involved, either because they didn't want to join in the killings, yeah, let's not make it too complicated. That was more or less the situation. So most of these killings were performed by neighbors, by people from the same village. So imagine this: after 100 days, a huge number of people have fallen victim to these genocides. A lot of the perpetrators and their families and so on fled when the country was taken over by this Tutsi RPF revolutionary army. And after a few years, they came back. And so these people are, again, forced to live together, or at least the survivors are forced to live together with the families of the perpetrators. A lot of the perpetrators ended up in prisons, but after a while they came out, they were let out. And so every day when you go to your field, you would come across people who would confront you with the loss of your children or your husband or other family members. Anyway, so that was the situation, and that's in that situation of living together. On the one hand, these traumatized victims, and on the other hand, the perpetrators who were often very afraid, ashamed, embarrassed, etc. Well, they had to find a way to live together.
Jan,
So
do you think
that
this is a good time to start showing the photographs now?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So I started to look for people who had reconciled. So let me give you a few examples. This couple that you see here, I may sometimes have a bit of problem with the names, but the woman is called Rose, and she lost her two eldest children and almost her entire family during the genocide. They were all, and the guy here, Ezekiel, was a member of the group who killed her baby and her sister-in-law, and who severely injured Rose. As you can still see, I'm not sure if the image is big enough here, but as you can still see, her right hand is deformed because of the injuries. And I think it's good to say that the position they took, the body language, is not something that I asked for. Basically, I asked them to choose however they wanted to sit. And the fact that Ezekiel is putting his hand on Rose's shoulder is not because I interfered in it. Sorry, just a second. Let me. Yeah, here we have another duo. Epifani is the woman to the left. And next to her is the man who was involved in the killing of nearly her entire family. Yeah, so let's go on. Yes, here. This is Liberata, and the man next to her is took part in the killing of her twins. Liberata lost 3 of her 11 children, including these twins who were murdered by a group, including this man. And after the genocide, the way she describes it is she was, these are her words, she was crazy, she was insane, and wanted revenge for a long time. And well, my interpretation, based on what I heard during the interviews, is that people had a few choices. I mean, these survivors. So either you attack and kill the perpetrator, the person who killed your loved ones, or you descend into deep depression, total isolation, and you become numb, or, and that takes many years apparently, you try to climb out of it, and that is what happened with these people. So the way we found these people, yeah, here's another example, Mariana, and the man next to her, if I'm not mistaken, he's called Mark, was the person who killed her sister. So we found these people through this organization, CBS, that sets up groups of 10 to 15 people, led by, you could say, amateur therapists, villagers who have had a training of about 6 weeks and then only work in their own village or their own surroundings. They bring these people together, invite them to join in, and they start these sessions, 15 sessions in total. They start them with very simple things like playing games, dancing together, and you can imagine how the atmosphere is in the beginning. If a survivor is sitting there together with somebody who killed her loved ones. But apparently, in a lot of cases, this creates some kind of trust. And interestingly enough, at the end of these sessions, a lot of these people keep on working together, living together. Sometimes one employs the other. Sometimes there are even marriages of children of one and a child or a cousin or nephew of the other. 80% of these groups somehow continue to collaborate. Now, for me, this was just absolutely incredible, and I have this very strong urge of showing this to the world because of the well, there have been conflicts all the time, of course, but these days it is really it's really horrible. We're confronted with Gaza, we're confronted with Ukraine, with Sudan, and here we actually see people who, if only after decades, managed to bring about peace and reconcile. So I'm right now working on a book together with this writer about these well, these examples about these people who have managed to come together. I think that's sort of the clue. That's let me stop here. I mean, the photographs, you can all see the photographs with short captions on the SDN website.
Mhm.
And well, if you're interested to hear more about it, either go to the Kickstarter page or to my website, and you can order a copy of the book, or you can read more about it.
You might want to let us know when that Kickstarter ends.
It ends in 2 weeks, in exactly 14 days. So the title is the same title as the one here on the website, Blood Bonds.
And the website is janbanning.com. I'll put that in.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Jan, I understand that you work with a very involved photographic technology to do your photography. Can you talk a bit about your process?
Yeah. Yeah, I do not exactly travel light. I was traveling here with about 60 kilos of equipment. And the thing is that I always, in fact, try to match form and contents. And my work has in the past been described by Martin Parr as conceptual documentary. And I think that's correct in the sense that I think about how to express this, how to visualize it. And in this case, and in some other cases, an important source of inspiration was film noir. So lots of shadows, a lot of the scene is in the dark, and film noir is very much about, you could say, moral ambiguity, casting doubt on what is good and bad. And I thought that was a very fitting style to use here. But it meant that I was traveling with, well, apart from the medium format digital camera, which I brought, I don't know, probably 4 light stands and 4 flashes and all kinds of modifiers, a small Fresnel and so on. to translate this into the images that you see.
I should comment to the audience here that looking at Jan's photographs through the interface of Zoom doesn't really give them justice at all. They're stunning photographs, stunning tonality and sharpness. You would see them better either on his website directly or the SDN website, or if you're in the United States and you happen to be in the Boston area or New York, you can see the photographs at the Bridge Gallery in Cambridge or at Photoville.
Yeah, and later on at Cortona on the Move and in Museum Hilversum in Holland. So it's going to travel.
Great. And before we open this up to questions from the audience, I just want to ask Maggie, do you have questions? Question for Jan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to mix them in with other questions as well. I mean, one question going back to your observations while making this project. It is really remarkable. It is shocking. And I had the same reaction when I first saw the project, was like that so many of the pairs are in physical contact, and
Yeah.
how hard that is to understand knowing the context. What do you think contributes to that? Because I did not know that the trainees, the moderators for this reconciliation project were very short-term trained locals. So do you think there's a religious or cultural practice that is in informing how these reconciliations happened?
Difficult to say. As lots and lots of people in Africa, the majority here is religious. So yes, that could play a role. I remember an example where one of the perpetrators had gone to a priest to confess, and the priest said, well, look, you first have to talk to your victim. I can't give you forgiveness if the victim doesn't forgive you. So in such instances, it is the representative of the church who plays a role. I think, I wouldn't want to say anything pseudo-wise about the culture in Rwanda. I mean, you probably have to spend years there to grasp that. But what I think is that this situation where people are basically forced to remain living in the same community because that's where their land is. Of course, some people migrate to the cities, but especially younger people. But for a lot of others, there's no alternative. This is where your land is. This is where you have to grow. This is where you have to make a living. And what I tried to explain earlier, if you cannot take revenge, well, simply because the disadvantages are too big or you're not strong enough, you have to find a solution, or you get destroyed by your own anger. So I think that plays the biggest role. As some people indicated, forgiveness is not what you do for the other, it's what you do for yourself. You try to liberate yourself from the anger and the frustration and the hatred. It's a way to move on with your life. And of course, you can't do that after a year or a few years, but in the long run, these people seem to have managed. And of course, what I think is important to say is, in some cases, I think these people have really become friends. I really believe it. In other cases, I think they sort of tolerate each other. But I mean, even tolerating each other is a big deal, I think, after such a history.
Yeah, I found the thing that crosses my mind while listening to you talk and having spent time with the work previous, there have been plenty of genocides and more to come, but I don't think these types of reconciliations have been repeated elsewhere. So I hope more people see this work and experience this work and see that such things are possible. And if those are possible, maybe genocides won't happen again. That's my hope.
Yes, Yes.
And there's several that we've got a couple of questions for you from the chat. The latest question is, how much time did you have to interact with your subjects prior to photographing them?
There were days when we photographed and interviewed two people. Let me first say this. In the photographs, you see the two people together. In one occasion, three, mostly two. The writer, who is really a fine and very empathic writer, talked to them separately. Mostly first with the victim and then with the perpetrator. It tended to take hours, and the way we worked was that we would be taken by one of, let's say, these therapists to a family that agreed to be, not a family, to two people who agreed to be photographed. We decided on where to photograph them, which was generally in the house of one of them, where the other had come to. The writer, Dick, looked for another place where he could interview them. I would set up my gear. As I said, it's sort of a complicated thing. I was working with a young Rwandese assistant, so she was a model. Sometimes we found somebody else as a model to, let's say, roughly set up the lights. And then in most cases, I joined the conversation. Well, joined the conversation. No, I listened in to the interview. Unless the writer thought it was a really bad idea, and then we had agreed on a sign. So probably in most cases, I spent an hour and a half with one, and generally, I have to say the perpetrators talk less and were less detailed than the survivors. Let's say with each couple, apart from setting up the equipment, 2 hours or so. And then at the end, I did the interviews with, I think in 4 cases, I did the interviews myself. So I took over from the writer. So that was even more than it was very long.
There was another question, and that was what kind of training was offered to the facilitators. And if it's okay with you, I will share a link to the CBS.
Rwanda. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I found it. Okay.
Great. Yes.
But you,
well, as you can imagine,
it's funded by the Netherlands.
It is still funded by the Netherlands. With the present government, you don't know how long that's going to last, but it is still funded by the Netherlands, yes. And it was actually set up by a Dutch woman who worked on PTSD in Holland and then adapted the whole thing to Rwanda. I guess, yeah. In each of these villages, there are 2 people who together sort of run the therapy. And it's the CBS Rwanda aims at finding 2 different people, like one Tutsi, one Hutu, even though that's kind of tricky because according to the government, you're not supposed to talk about Hutus and Tutsi anymore. But of course, everyone knows who is what. A man and a woman, things like that. So they try to find a combination as how shall I say, as different as possible. And then these people have had an intensive training. To be honest, I don't know exactly how that training works, but the idea behind it is, of course, that there's no way that you can treat all these traumatized people by classical psychiatry. I think there are 10 psychiatrists in the whole of Rwanda, and by now Rwanda has, I think, 14 million inhabitants. So you can imagine that that's not a way to go. And so these people also, I'm using the term therapist to make it understandable, but they're not supposed to be compared to what we see as therapists. And what I do know is one of the important things is that they're supposed to listen and stimulate people to talk and not talk too much themselves, as I'm doing now. Uh, um, so they're supposed to get rid of the idea of being a teacher, of teaching people. They should do as little as possible to facilitate the others. But of course, they initiate these games, these dances, and in that sense, they play an important role. Is that sort of an answer to whoever asked the
Yeah,
question?
I think it does. And then if anyone wants more information, they can explore the website. Um, but also, you know, both Carlos and Jan seem to have be very, very aware of your lighting and technical approach to framing. And there's like Rembrandt is
Mhm.
also there.
Yeah, right.
I can't and I can't stress enough the influence of other art forms on beautiful photography, and I find it interesting. Like I don't think we're conscious when judging and exploring the submissions to a contest sometimes until this moment, some of the
Mhm.
similarities and overlaps in approach. And are both of you shooting film?
I'm not. I'm shooting with a digital Hasselblad.
Oh, so but medium format digital.
Yeah.
Okay. And Carlos, did were you shooting film?
This project is in film. It's 6:7. It's a Mamiya 7.
Mhm.
Mamiya 7.
So I think that would be very interesting to most fans of photography that both projects are medium format, and that
Mhm.
Carlos, you dialed it all the way back to film. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I came back.
So going back to like process and like the making of the work, Carlos, did you also work with an assistant?
When I worked in the news agencies, I used to work with assistants because I shoot a lot portrait tour for magazines, portraits. I made also industrial photography like cars, advertising, and this kind. But when I work like the project you speak before in Siberia, in Russia, or this new one, I prefer to stay alone because if I have somebody with me, uh, I I think a lot about these other people stay okay, stay good. Maybe they are tired, maybe. But if I stay alone, I can maybe work 10 hours without it. Maybe I can awake at 2 in the night to shoot something. So I feel really free if I stay alone. So I work with assistants and also with lights, like Jen say, but only in like let's say more professional kind of photography. Uh, in my personal projects, if I can, I prefer to do it alone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Carlos,
freedom.
I
Uh,
can imagine that this is such poetic work. I can imagine that you need a lot of silence around you.
Mm.
And of course, in my case, this assistant also is my translator, and not
I
just language translator, but also cultural translator. Like, okay,
I understood.
how shall I ask these people to pose freely? How do I express that? So it's a very different situation. It's
Yeah,
different
yeah, yeah,
work and
of
a different
course.
situation. But I get it why you don't. Yeah.
If you in your case, it's a must. You need
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
In my case, also when I worked in Russia, as Maggie said before, sometimes I need the translator or some kind of fixer. But if I could, I sometimes use it, as especially when I must speak with people or make an interview. But if I can stay alone, I prefer it because I feel more connected with the
Mhm.
area, with the people, with things I photograph.
Yeah.
How is your back after spending 3 years in bed? Are you able to carry your heavy equipment now? And
I made surgery. I got surgery because in the spine the doctors don't want to make you the surgery because it's you have high probability of finishing wheelchair or something like that. But after 3 years, I decided to take the surgery. Now I feel a little bit better. And I try to don't carry too much. So I cannot carry the amount of lights that Jen carry by myself. Of course, if I must do a work or a project with lights like Jen, I will need an assistant for sure. I try to have my camera, 2 or 3 lenses, and the film with me, so my hands are free, can use the hands without have anything, and I feel comfortable like just take, shoot, change the film, change the lens, shoot, and pack up everything, and my hands are. This is the way I like to shoot, but of course I cannot shoot always like this.
Are there any
Anyone? Any other questions?
Yeah, hi. More a statement than a question. First to Carlos. My name is Stefan. Hi, Jan. We know each
Hey,
other.
Stefan.
Carlos, your story, your personal story just floors me. I mean, it's from the wild reporter kind of photojournalist to coming down to poetry, if you want. Just awesome. I mean, wonderful work. And I'm sorry you had to go through that, but sometimes life, throws you these balls, and then, but as you didn't give up, but made something really good out of it. So that's just really awesome. Jan, what can I say? I mean, I know all of your work. And you prove, and you need to like photography first, right? I mean, if you wouldn't create pictures that are like stunning, then this project wouldn't be transported the way it is, right? If it were snapshots or whatever, I mean, then it would still be a crazy, amazing story. But thanks to you, I mean, this story gets out here, right? I mean, you had the standing already in the business that
Thank you.
has a bigger ripple effect, and it's really, really important. I mean, it's such a hopeful story. What I want to say is the first picture just floors me. I mean, as you said, flabbergasts me. The very first picture you showed, the body language of those two people, and I'm glad you mentioned that you let, I mean, needless to say, in a photography situation, nobody is like free, like there's always something different than in normal life because there's a photographer. But the body language of those two just I mean, you think if you didn't know the story, they lived together, like
Yeah.
it's affection. It's like, how can you explain that? Like unbelievable. The story is unbelievable and has so much. We really need those stories these days and any other day. I mean, history is full of these times. So I mean, thank you so much. When I saw this, and I'm glad it's you and nobody else who was telling the story.
Thank
Really
you, Stefan.
important and amazing. So thank you.
I think the project of Jen it's so important because we all know about this genocide in Rwanda, but I did never heard about the reconciliation. So my first knew about the reconciliation it was when I saw the project of Jen. So this opens also that there is a hope for humans.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, Jen.
And it's, we all know I'm German, right? So we have a history, not that I was part of it, but I'm still part of it. We all know single cases of but this like as a whole story is and the dozens of people, or probably more than that, far more.
Yes.
Mind-blowing.
And in fact, the writer and I together did some research into other cases, Cambodia, Nepal, Northern Ireland, Colombia, South Africa. But as you rightly point out, there are exceptions. And of course, there are people in, let's say, Northern Ireland, or situations where you have a former IRA member and a former UDF member who come together on the table. Okay, but this here is different. I mean, here it's personal. It's deeply personal that one person has actually harmed the other one, not on an abstract level, but on a direct personal level. And that is where we didn't find other examples, let's say, on a somewhat larger scale. It seems that everywhere else, these are absolute exceptions.
Yeah, and it's not just acceptance, it's real forgiveness. It's like, I mean, real, so it seems, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it goes far deeper than okay, let's let this rest, you know.
Mhm.
Uh,
I thought it was interesting that Jan said that forgiveness is not for the victim, it's for the perpetrator, really.
No, I know. What I meant to say is forgiveness is for yourself.
Mm.
And not only did some of the people in Rwanda say that, but I know that, well, also from Christina Boyer, the woman about who I did this project, The Verdict, and also, well, other people in comparable circumstances. Forgiving is something you do for yourself to be able to go on with life. But of course, the other party, in a way, benefits from it because it also gives the other person back his or her humanity to some extent.
All right, we have one more question from the audience, and that is for both of you, what's next? Are you going to continue with these projects or do you have other things that you're going to be working on?
Carlos, go ahead.
So for me, what's next? I still continuing with this project. My dream it will be to make maybe in 1 or 2 years a book of this project. But at the same time, I have also another projects in my mind that I'm already writing, projecting. I can give you a little ideas of these projects are related with climate change. One of them related with heat because in Spain we have a lot of lot of heat in summer. So one project is about how the degrees are increasing every year. And the other project, it's a little bit more difficult to raise, but I want to do it since 3 or 4 years before. It's in North Korea. I have a little idea to do there. It's difficult to explain, but probably I will try to go maybe this year or next one because it was closed because the COVID. So let's see what's going on.
That
Did you say
sounds
North Korea?
challenging. You're going to do poetry in North Korea.
Mhm.
That
I
makes me
will
curious.
I will do poetry in North Korea. That's the
Go for it, Carlos. Go for
it's
it.
difficult, but I will try it.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
And Jan?
As for me, well, as I said, we are finishing this book. The English version should be out probably around July. And at the same time, I'm working on a completely revised version of my old book, Bureaucratics. New print, partly new selection, new text. And I've just returned from Italy after all these heavy topics, such as a woman who's wrongly convicted, this Rwanda story, even though it is hopeful, it was also really heavy stuff. And I did another project in Africa, which again was heavy stuff. And I thought, my goodness, I want something light. So I've just returned from Italy to do a small series about the Carabinieri, the police. And possibly I will expand that in a few other countries. I don't know yet. But yeah, something light. I think that's what I need.
I like it. Your definition of light is a police
Yeah,
force.
yeah, there's some irony in there, isn't it? It's all relative.
I thought you were going to say in Italy you were going to photograph the vineyards or something like that.
Yeah.
Maggie, do you have any closing comments or words?
Uh, No, I think that's a great place to stop.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I really want to thank our presenters and Maggie. Please give everybody an applause.
Thank you
I mean,
all. Thank
yes,
you
in
all.
closing, I mean, yeah, thank you, Glenn and SDN. Every year this contest just keeps getting deeper and more beautiful and more amazing. There are so few places for these opportunities. So, keep checking out SDN, support SDN if you can. There's also Jan's Kickstarter. But yeah, think about long term, helping keep SDN afloat so that we can keep doing these.
Thanks for that, Maggie. And thank you, everybody. All right. And look for the video in a few days.
Hey, thanks everyone, and have a nice, well, what is it there? Afternoon or so? It's evening.
Depends on where people are from all over the world.
All right. So have a nice morning, afternoon, evening, night. Yeah.
You too.
Thanks a lot. Ciao, ciao.
Welcome.
See you at
Thank you.
Photoville.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, ciao.
Ciao.
See you at Photoville, Jan.
Thank
Sorry?
you.
See you at Photoville.
Yes. Yes, Stefan. Wir sehen uns dort. Bis dann. Ne?
Das hoffen wir. Kaffee trinken. Ciao.
Genau. Oder Bier oder Wein.
Irgendwas.
Ciao, ciao.
See you.